My professional journey is my very personal journey. From my very first pelvic exam at age 21, which was excruciatingly painful, and the doctor actually used lidocaine to numb my vagina, and then proceed with the exam, and then never had a conversation about that after. Like, oh, that's not normal, or maybe we need to look at this further. First time I had intercourse about a year later with my partner, who has now been my husband, was also excruciatingly painful. And eventually we just stopped having intercourse. And
hi there, Bianca. Welcome. And so for those of us who are coming to this, for people listening who are like, I wonder if women's health coaching is for me. Let's start with your story. Where did you come to thinking about that question for yourself?
It was a bit of a winding road. I am a nurse midwife and women's health nurse practitioner and have been practicing clinically since 2018. I was in a very busy outpatient, reproductive health clinic, working in San Diego. And, it was just one of those really intense jobs. Our patients had a lot of complex needs. We were, told we have about 10 minutes per visit with each patient. All you heard about was productivity and efficiency. And it just didn't, the mission was wonderful. I think we did provide the best care that we could in the circumstances. But personally, for me, it just didn't feel like I was being able to care for people in the way that I really wanted to or envisioned when I got into the field of women's health.
It's such an important point because I think so many people who come to our programs from a clinical background or a corporate background at all are really seeking a way out of such an intensely productivity driven system, because we know intuitively we're not, we're doing the best we can with the situation that we have, but it's not the best because it's being driven by other people's financial goals, not healthcare goals. And so most people go into healthcare with a really strong mission, and yet almost all of us at some point in our careers get stuck in that kind of environment. I mean, almost all corporate healthcare environment is that. So you have to actually sort of deliberately step out of it to make a change. So you were in that.
Mm-hmm.
You were early in your practice, which, is valuable. You learn a lot, right? But now you're like, okay, what am I going to do next? What am I going to learn?
Yeah. Right. And, sort of parallel to my professional journey is my very personal journey. From my very first pelvic exam at age 21, which was excruciatingly painful, and the doctor actually used lidocaine to numb my vagina, and then proceed with the exam, and then never had a conversation about that after. Like, oh, that's not normal, or maybe, we need to look at this further. There was just no, further conversation. First time I had intercourse about a year later with my partner, who has now been my husband and partner of almost 20 years, was also excruciatingly painful. And eventually we just stopped having intercourse. And I went to nursing school, and I got half a lecture on women's sexual medicine and sexual health from a very, well-qualified sex therapist. And so I went to go see her. I thought, okay, maybe she might be able to help me. And she gave me a link to order some dilators and a piece of paper that said, this is how you use them. And then we did a lot of therapy and talking, which was definitely a component and something I needed to do. But the actual, physical work and the acknowledgement that there was a physical issue going on, and maybe that needed more evaluation, wasn't really brought forth other than this, sort of go forth and do dilator work.
Yes.
And even at the clinic where I was going at that point as a student to get my gynecological care, they were also using lidocaine. They knew I, had painful sex, painful pelvic exams, but again, no one mentioned anything like a specialist or pelvic floor physical therapy. And so finally, once I graduated from the nursing program, And I got my master's, and we were in Connecticut at the time, and then moved out to San Diego for my husband's job. And I said, I've got to figure this out. Like, I had an inkling at that point that like there would be specialists out there. And I also like can't live like this anymore. And our relationship can't be like this anymore. And so I actually found a pelvic pain specialist at UCSD, made an appointment. She did an exam, her Q-tip exam, and said, you have what was at the time vestibulodynia, and now we call it vestibulitis, and learned that it was, basically a neurological condition, and learned about this vestibular tissue. And then I went to pelvic floor PT in San Diego, and that was really powerful. And I was doing that work. But finally, in March of 2021, so 15 years after that first painful pelvic exam, I ended up having a vestibulectomy surgery to remove that band of tissue around the vaginal opening. And since then, life has been very different and very positive.
That's
but
great.
I intersected with coaching through that journey. So while doing physical therapy, one of my physical therapists that I worked with, her name was Rose Schlaff of Be Well with Rose, and she is a former student of this program, and had her own, growing coaching practice. And she was one of the first people, the first person who talked about coaching with me, and then also used coaching in our PT sessions to get me to do my homework. Because I was really bad. PTs would, basically write a prescription for that week, right? You're going to do this thing 2 times, you're going to do this thing 3 times, whatever. Send me home with the paper, and I wouldn't do it. I had a lot of emotional blocks around it. I just couldn't, it just didn't seem like anything that was going to bring any sort of fun to my life. It felt kind of like work and miserable, and I was just not there.
Yeah.
And so Rose was like, okay, like, let's talk about that. Why aren't you doing your homework? And we had a great conversation, and we came up with a plan. She's like, okay, well, where would you feel comfortable doing the dilator work? And what would that look like? And when are you going to do it? And, how are you going to hold yourself accountable? And, I actually got through working through the dilator work. This was pre-surgery. And it was really just like just a different approach. And she coached, that was coaching, right? I was being coached.
Yeah.
And that was sort of my first moment of, oh, okay, like there's a different approach to getting someone to make progress, in whatever aspect of their health. So once I had the surgery, Rose, actually I became her client, coaching client. And so we really worked through sort of post-surgery, creating just a lot of positive feelings towards my pelvic floor. There was just basically a black box there for so long, right? I just wanted to ignore it and forget about it. And she really helped me to sort of reconnect with that part of myself in a gentle, loving, and positive way, and really start opening up about sex and intimacy, which are also things that I had really just shut down. And I also, over the next couple of years, did some groups with her, coaching groups that she was holding, and got to meet some other women who were going through similar things, and did some nervous system regulation work. And so during that process, I was also having this professional sort of, fork in the road moment where I was like, okay, I love, my job and working with women and caring for women. I'm very passionate about pelvic pain and women's sexual health. I would really like to find a way forward where I can sort of bring this together. And, spoke with Rose a lot about it, and decided to sign up for the coaching program, for your program. And so I was doing a lot of my self work as I was going through your program too. And actually took a break from my clinical job completely for a year. I was able to have some financial support from my partner, and was able to take that year and really sort of think deeply about what it is that I wanted to do. And I think guiding me through all of that was the visioning work that I had done with Rose at the very beginning of our coaching engagement, that really has been my North Star
Mm-hmm.
for how I want to move forward in my life with my health, with my professional work, with just my family life. And one thing that came out of that vision was the word ease. I
Mm-hmm.
wanted to feel more of a sense of ease. I think I had been operating for so long, especially in that clinical world, under a sense of urgency, right? Like we have to keep on, on time. And then I've got to keep up with my home life and my life admin and my relationships and my exercise. It's just this feeling like this constant drive inside to go, go, go. And that everything was urgent.
Mm-hmm.
And so coming to this sense of ease and this vision and sort of seeing my future self in her cabin in the woods and just having this, real sense of ease has then just been my, like I said, my North Star about what I'm going to do next. Is it bringing more ease into my life? Is it getting me closer to that vision or not? And that's really, I think, been such a powerful tool to have. So I know that was a long answer to your question, but it's been a winding path, right? It didn't, these things took time to sort of come together.
Yeah. And I think that's so true of so many people's stories. When they look outside of the current corporate model of healthcare, they're like, oh, there is an option to use all of my clinical skills, all of my skills of humanness, of my story, of my experience. Because even if you had never been a nurse or a nurse practitioner, you still had this personal experience where you then recognize that there's a way to hold space for people. And one of the things that I think you'll be familiar with in that we start the program with having people kind of turn the mirror on themselves, right? Like if they weren't lucky enough to work with Rose or you or someone before they met us, what is your actual vision? And when we start all of our coaching engagements in that way, even if people come to us with sort of a health concern that they're running from, so like you were trying to get away or get over this vulvar pain, but you still had to be tethered to a future vision, right? So being tethered to that future vision helps people then see, okay, what do I actually want? And my husband always says this. He's like, how come my guidance counselor never told me there were these like jobs where you could do this kind of work? And I think when you're in healthcare, it's very much that, right? You're shuttled into kind of a, cog in a wheel kind of job. And it's hard to even have awareness that there's the opportunity to do the kind of work that Rose is now doing, that you are now doing. And so as you've graduated and you're transitioning into your health coaching role, what is your vision for your practice now?
Yeah. And this is, I think, what I just sort of have, it has really come into view. We recently had some big life changes. So we moved from San Diego back to Rhode Island, where I am from. And we were able to buy a house, which was part of my vision too. And it happened, and it's been wonderful. And we're closer to family and sort of settling in here. So that was about 5 months ago. And so coming back to Rhode Island, where I kind of got started, I was a birth doula here. I led group prenatal care classes here as an AmeriCorps volunteer before I went on to nursing school. I'm trying to get a sense of, who's here doing pelvic health, what is my network? And so I have really been using this time to get out there and meet some amazing practitioners and look at some amazing practices in the New England area. And I am starting through that work to figure out what it is that I want to do. And my vision, as it stands today, is to actually open up my own medical practice, and
Mhm.
whether that's going to be integrated into a pelvic floor PT practice, which I've seen this model happening, and it's just really beautiful. And so I would love to, be integrated into something. I think that's the way that is just the best model of care for women, but we'll see how that goes.
And just a quick reminder, we do have in our membership program, we have common guest speakers and people showing their practice models and how they did it. And it's funny you should say that because it is such a growing, successful model. Vashti Kanahili, who's another graduate of our program, is going to be presenting in the membership program in about a week or so, exactly how she has done that with the physician. So,
Mm-hmm.
physician, nurse practitioner, physician assistant, DO, whatever, they're going to be presenting exactly how they built that model. So I think pelvic rehab, coaching, nurse practitioner and or pelvic health physician, physiatrist, I think we are seeing more and more successful kinds of models like that where people get very comprehensive care. And in fact, that's really what Dawn and I do in our menopause program. She's a nurse practitioner. I'm
Mm-hmm.
a coach and physical therapist and nutritionist. So I think the key is with any of these kind of hybrid models of coaching and clinical support is that space. It's sort of like how the client gets started. So,
Yes.
when you were with Rose, you had that space to build out your vision, which is extremely rare. Like if I were to just go to a regular gynecology appointment, even with a nurse practitioner, we wouldn't have like even 15 minutes to sit down and say like, okay, you've had really challenging, painful sex since the day you started having pelvic exams, never mind
Mm-hmm.
intercourse. What can you even fathom? Like what does a healthy sex life look like to you? And what are some of your thoughts about that? So I think the fact that you bring that lens and now you have the skill set of coaching. So if you think about the skill set of coaching, what feels most valuable to you in terms of the tools you actually learned in this program?
I mean, the vision, setting a vision, having that comprehensive, view of what it is that you want your life to look like, and health we know touches every aspect of our lives, and vice versa. And so being able to really look at the big picture first and zoom out a little bit, I think is extremely powerful. And it was for me. And you're absolutely right. We don't do that in medical visits, and we should we should find a way. So that extremely powerful. Also really doing the work of listening, in a 10-minute visit, you can listen for a couple minutes and that can be powerful, but
Mhm.
to really in a coaching model have, as much time as you want really to listen and, for that client to be heard and talk through things and be validated. Just myself being on the other side of that and having been coached, like, I think that is a really underestimated tool and so very needed, especially for women who are struggling with health issues. Like they, think they really need to be heard.
Mhm.
And then accountability, having that sort of first creating the map, the roadmap, creating the baby steps, making it very doable, making it fun, and then having that accountability to, keep moving forward. And so just being comfortable, with letting the process flow and letting the client lead and be empowered to lead, I think is so important. I think a lot of healing modalities, and they all have their value and they're all important, tend to render the client to be very passive,
Mm.
right?
Mhm.
And that's okay. Sometimes we just need to let ourselves receive.
Yeah.
Um, but I think for that lasting inner transformation, that to live the vision day to day, it does take work, right? Or effort and energy, but intentional, right? To move forward in a way that feels good, that makes sense, and that, the client is totally in control of where it's going to go. So I think pretty much all of the coaching skills
Yes. Yeah.
are important, but I think that without the vision, the rest is really hard to put into place.
Well, and I think to circle back to your personal experience, you had a lot of the right pieces in place. The physicians were using lidocaine, the physical therapists were giving you the checklist of correct exercises, if you will. Even your initial sex therapist was, kind of introducing you to the idea of dilators. But the coaching piece where Rose was like, okay, you sort of know what to do. You even have a medical background. Why are you not implementing it? Wasn't about this like power struggle of like, you've got to do your exercises, or like, you're not going to get better. It was like, what are the blocks there? And our clients have lots of blocks. They have interpersonal blocks, they have trauma blocks, they have financial blocks, they have practical blocks, they have fear blocks. And I think this is the good thing about coaching. We have the opportunity to hold space for those blocks. And that allows the client to really figure out what they are. Then they have the capacity to hold themselves accountable without like white knuckling it. Like, okay, I did my exercises, but they're not really that effective.
Right.
So, yeah. So I think that balance between awareness of what's holding someone back from being accountable and holding them accountable. So your personal story is just so informative. Your future clients are so lucky, and the state of Rhode Island is so lucky because you can probably touch almost all of it. It's a tiny state.
It is. It's a lovely little tiny state.
As someone who just recently lived in Connecticut, we're not that much more powerful.
Far.
You can probably reach in and touch Connecticut a little bit too. So everyone up there is very lucky to have you, and the network that you're building around pelvic pain and sexual pain. The need is tremendous. So thank you for bringing a coaching perspective to that, both the medical community and the patients that will be there ready to collaborate with you. Anything else you want to say to someone who might be kind of on the edge about whether or not this program is worth it? They've done lots of training. They're just not really sure. They want to take that time and invest that money to spend the next 6 to 18 months really doing the work of this program, because it is a commitment for sure.
Yeah. I mean, first I would say, does it fit into their vision? Do they have a vision, right? And does it make sense in that way? And if they haven't done any vision work, then I would definitely recommend that.
Well, and that's what our career coaches do. So that's what Brandy and Kelsey and our whole career coaching team does. So if you don't have a vision and you just don't know, schedule a call, and then those guys who are brilliant coaches will help you set that vision for sure.
Yeah. I love that. And then from there, I mean, I just found it to be one of the best investments, honestly, in my career and in my life. There's a lot that this program offers. It's so robust. Jessica, I know you've been working on this for a long time, but it's so meaty for that, and the practical tools are there. And for me, what made the biggest difference was having the hands-on practice, the retreats, having a master coach who got it, and was really guiding me through and helping me build confidence and understand my own blocks through the program, connecting with the community and accountability partners who have now become dear friends across the country. I think a lot of, what drew me to clinical practice was being a hands-on learner. And I think this program, because it offers the theoretical, but also a lot of hands-on practice, was absolutely the right choice for me. And I think just a tremendous experience. And so if someone is thinking about it, then I would at least make the call and talk to someone on staff about it. And it really is just a wonderful thing. So Yeah, so appreciative.
Well, thank you so much. And a big love to our master coach team and JC and Dawn, who have really helped me. We've been doing this program since about 2006 and officially since 2011. So many years under our belt of focusing exclusively on women's health and pelvic health. But the team who are working on optimizing the full retreat experience and making the entire thing accessible digitally to everyone on the planet, no matter where you are with an internet connection, and pulling together through orientation sessions and practice sessions and one-on-one support with the master coaches. I just want to celebrate our team for continuing to make this program more and more robust. So I appreciate all of that feedback, and thank you so much for being a really valued part of our community, because now you get to circle back and be kind of one of the leaders in our membership community and in our broader IWHI community. So we can't wait to hear from you again in a couple more years so you can share all about your experiences out in the world. And good luck to you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Jessica, so much. It's really exciting to be a part of this. It's really
Thank
wonderful.
you. Thank you.